Hi all, I'm Cullen Haynes and welcome to Live with Cullen Haynes, LawLive, episode 90. And I am here with the AML Queen, Miss Amy Bell of AML Sorted, has been doing AML and been in the legal world for the last 21 years. And before Tranche 2 gets well underway, we're going to be talking about all things anti-money laundering. The episode is called Dirty Money, Clean Firm, the AML Wake-Up Call, and it's going to make great drive home content. So thank you so much for tuning into the LawLive show. Give us a cheeky like and maybe make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm about to bring you my dear friend, the one, the only, Miss Amy Bell of AML Sorted. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, if you haven't been living under a rock, this kind of thing, those are tuning in, AML is a big focus at the moment in Australia. Tell us what's happening in your world there, Amy, because you must be inundated with the changes coming. And for those who don't know, can you just give everyone a little bit of a rundown on what's happening and what's changing?
Absolutely. So last week, 1 July, Tranche 2 of the AML legislation came into force. So essentially, AML legislation you've had in Australia for quite a while. You'll be used to it if you've been to open a bank account or go to a casino or something. And they extended that to include the professions, which is where I support people in the legal sector. And so the change essentially is requiring law firms when they're doing certain types of work to make sure they definitely know who they're dealing with and that they start to be curious around whether what they're being instructed to do might be a front for money laundering or terrorist financing. And so the big change really is about the questions that lawyers are going to be expected to ask. They're going to have to keep records of the answers. And if they are suspicious, they may need to report that to law enforcement. The whole point of bringing the professions into scope is that whilst the banks see one aspect of money laundering, the professions might see a different a different picture that can help enrich the law enforcement intelligence and therefore help them stop the criminals.
Absolutely. And I will say you are joining us all the way from the UK at the moment. So really appreciate you tuning in where you are and engaging with everyone and leveling us up on what's happening in AML. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. I just got back last week at the weekend, actually. I was in Australia for 8 weeks this time. And yeah, back for a month and then back again. I live on both sides of the world at the moment.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, I want to get into that. And also what sparked your interest in being an AML and compliance expert? Because it's not something that you usually gravitate to. So there must be a story there for you, Amy.
It was completely by accident, if I'm honest. I was a fee earning solicitor. I trained in a small high street firm locally to where I live, and was not instrumental, but was part of bringing down Britain's biggest serial killer. That's a whole other story. I'm sure you're going to ask me about.
Wow. Yes. Yes.
In that firm, but then I went to a large firm in Manchester here, which is where I live. And I was fee earning there. I was doing car accidents, which, absolutely, it's important that people who are victims of car accidents get representation. And I really enjoyed helping people. Obviously, that environment sometimes can be a bit challenging. People potentially, the people who are paying out the claims might be a bit kind of skeptical about your client's injuries, and that became quite a hard world to be in, where you're trying to fight for someone to get what's fair and you're faced with people trying to disprove your client's got any problems. So it was a bit frustrating sometimes. It wasn't what I started off doing, but as passage of time came, people started to think it was some sort of attempt just to get rich quick, and I just felt it was really difficult, especially for those clients that really were struggling and really struggling to get what was fair, treatment costs paid, things like that, loss of earnings and things like that. So I did that for a while. And what I realized was that it was a process. To get these cases dealt with efficiently was a process. And I have always been a person that kind of does really difficult things and applies a process to it. So I did that. I built a process. I worked out how to get these cases, how to get them delivered in a way that improved the speed of it for the clients.
Yeah.
Reduce the cost of it so it wasn't overly expensive, so that clients could get the representation that they needed. Help my firm implement it. And then I was a bit bored, if I'm honest. I'm always honest, but I was a bit bored. I thought, I've done that now. Process. I had it all, I had particulars of claims ready to go. Before you had real templates and things like that, or any AI or anything like that, I'd had that's how you run a rear end shunt claim. That's how you run someone's pulled out in front of you claim. And I had it all ready, so it was super efficient. And I was looking for something else to do. And in my firm, we'd grown massively, and AML was only quite new then. It was about 2 years old. And one of the things I'd learned I really liked doing was teaching people. And so a job came up in the firm to be the firm's legal skills trainer. So the most exciting things, compliance, they wanted a trainer to be able to deliver that training to new starters and refresher training. But that was only half a job, and I needed a full-time job. And so they said, well, listen, AML's quite new. We're not sure we're managing it very well. Please, could you go and have a look at it and see what we can do? And that the rest is history, really. I soon found out we probably were struggling a little bit, and I got my teeth into a brand new process, and it went from there, really.
Absolutely. You have to be very clued in to do what you do. And I wonder what kind of profiling you have to do for the people behind the money laundering, because a bit of a side story, in my previous life, back in the day, was a manager at a hotel, and one of the guests eventually got caught for it, but they were always quite liberal with their money. And I always thought, it's quite interesting there, the way this person acts. I don't know, is it a money launderers quite professional people? Do they fit a certain type, or you can't really, there's no real profile of them because it's so endemic, would you say?
Depends. It's different kinds of baddies. I mean, I sometimes say to people that some money launderers, it's a career choice. It's an intellectual challenge. It's what shall I do with my life? I want something that is hard to do. And they're attracted by, the intellectual challenge of being one step ahead of law enforcement. You obviously also get the kind of the kind of people who make it easy to get caught. They're not necessarily that cunning in terms of being able to evade law enforcement.
They're not hatching their mustache and being the mastermind, right?
I think one of the interesting things that I have learned, and which I really enjoy myself, is trying to sit in the seat of the crook. Because often what I talk to people about is, how do we comply with the requirements that we're given? It's not necessarily the same thing as catching the criminals, though, because one thing doesn't equal the other, unfortunately. And that's because the criminals are so cunning. But when you actually sit in the seat of somebody who's trying to break your processes, is trying to do laundering and think about their mindset, I find it absolutely fascinating. So someone said to me once about crooks trying to get services from, it could be from a lawyer, it could be from a bank, something like that. If you want a business to take on your business and it's a bit dodgy, here's what you do. You send lots of really, really dodgy examples to them so they turn them all down. And then you come in later when they're panicking about their quotas for the day of new customers. And then they'll take you because their risk appetite will be lowered because they're up against a different challenge. And it's one of the things I say to lawyers, whenever we've seen a financial downturn in the market and lawyers start to worry about work coming in, commercial property, residential property, corporate, that's when you're most vulnerable to the criminals, because they know you're worried about your billing target. And so they know your risk appetite will be lowered. And so then they will come, and this is what I'm saying, you've got to think like the crooks. What will they?
You really do, don't you?
come. And I find that fascinating. I mean, you know, I sometimes say to me, you know, what people say to me, why money laundering, Amy? I'm like, well, because I'm too honest to be a crook, but I am fascinated intellectually by it and by, you know.
No, I think it's a fantastic combination. And on a previous episode today, I was talking to one of the guests, Jason Loft, about Darren. I think it's Darren Brown, the hypnotist, and he's also an intellectual and whatnot. Similar sort of thing. The mind of the way the human beings function and interact. I'm sure it's on another level with some of these bad actors, as they are called. But you know, you literally wrote the book on it because you're the author of Solicitors and Money Laundering and the chair of the New South Wales or the Law Society's Economic Crime Committee. How do those two things shape and interact and make you the person you are today?
So the England and Wales Law Society, just to make sure that we get it right.
Oh, making sure, not the New South Wales. Sorry for the incorrect attribution there.
When you see the Wales, and it's an easy mistake to make.
My mind just went there. So there you go. There's another thing.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy to volunteer in New South Wales if they want my services. I am actually retiring this year from the Law Society. One thing led to the other. The Law Society role led to the co-author. I'm the co-author of the 4th edition, working on the 5th edition of Solicitors and Money Laundering. So I kind of inherited it and worked on it with the former kind of author of it. He was retiring. He's like, let's bring you in, let's share the workload, and I'll take it over. So, and it was the joining the task force actually for me will remain, I think, one of the highlights of my career. I was a solicitor. I'd been a fee earning solicitor. I'd been focused on climbing the fee earning ladder to get to equity partnership. I moved away from fee earning, and that progression can be quite difficult in non-fee earning roles. And I was kind of a bit stuck. I fixed money laundering, prevention of money laundering. I fixed AML in my firm. I got it working nice. I got a team and everything. And this role came up for volunteering at the England and Wales Law Society it was called the Money Laundering Task Force then, which I still prefer, in fairness. I think it's quite exciting. But I thought, I'll never get it. You know, why would the Law Society want me? And I went and I spoke to Alison, she's called the lady there, who was the chair at the time. And she later told me that the passion I clearly had for protecting lawyers came through, because when I was a solicitor and AML came in, I was told this day in this training that if you're not careful, you can be arrested because a criminal has exploited your services. And that's the reality of AML. And I was furious. I'm like, that's outrageous. I spent all this
That's crazy when you think about it, right?
Becoming a solicitor. And so my passion since I found AML was protecting solicitors and the investment that they've made in themselves and keeping them from essentially being victims of the criminals. And so when that was what I told her about how passionate I was about it. And she gave me this role. And I was, you know, the learning curve from going on the practitioner side and the doing what passports, you know, what checks should we do on passports and all of that kind of doing side of it, to suddenly the policy side and reimagine when the law's not working, what could we do to fix it? And how do we make this fair and equitable for people? How do we make this workable for people? And that was an experience as a lawyer I would never have got as a lawyer had I not have got that role. So I'm 15 years in now. There is a term, and I've exceeded it to some tune. It's because I've been the chair twice, so you get extra time when you're the chair of the committee. But my term is up this year, so it's going to be sad to leave because it has been such a massive part of my life and my career. And the volunteering to me is just super important. Sharing what I can with people is just one of my things.
Well, it sounds like it's been an incredible ride so far. And I will encourage you, if you're watching LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X, and Instagram Live, put some questions in. I'm monitoring the chat box and we'll put it to this wonderful guest of ours, Amy, on the show. Now, I want to ask you, is it anything like Catch Me If You Can, the movie, when you're in one of these task forces, you know, trying to get the, you know, the Leo character, Frank William Abagnale, and he's always one step ahead of you. Is it anything like that?
The challenge is we very rarely get feedback about whether we are actually onto a crook or not. What is fascinating is when you do get to sit down, as I've been very lucky to do with law enforcement, and they explain how important what we do is to them. You don't often get in-time feedback. The only time you really get any like live feedback or any feedback at all recent to your reports is if you've actually hit on a live case.
I see.
The intel that we put in helps them build a case.
Yes.
And so it's very rare that they'll like get on the phone and say, oh, by the way, can you just tell me more about this crook? Because it's a live case. That very rarely happens. But sometimes it does happen. And when you can say, we helped do that, we helped protect those people from, the impact of that. We've done a tiny little bit of that, but what we do could be the one nugget that allows law enforcement to be able to get the warrant, to be able to triangulate the data, to realize what they're looking at here. And that's why the regime is so important to law enforcement, because the criminals will tell different stories to different people. They'll practice their stories. So, if you think about it in conveyancing, for example, we're probably the fourth professional that they speak to by the time they come to the lawyer. To practice the story with the financial advisor, the mortgage broker, the real estate agent. And then eventually they come into us with a very practiced story. So it can be really difficult for us to spot. But then there's a dimension to it that we might be curious about that those other people haven't necessarily thought about. Like, does the reason you're doing this make sense? Whereas the bank's focused on interest rates and their quotas, and the real estate agent, is focused
just wants to sell the place. Yeah.
Does it sell property? That's what they're interested in. We're interested in, does this make sense? Because you can't give someone legal advice without understanding if what they want to achieve makes sense. So we're asking slightly different questions than those other people, which means we might see slightly different things. Not all the time, because as I say, some crooks are good at being crooks.
No, indeed. I'm sure there's an element of Occam's razor there, that the simplest explanation probably is the reason behind it, but there is probably some elaborate things that you've seen that goes on as well. And I'd love to know, what's one surprising skill that's helped you in this line of work, help you really look at it with that lens? I'd love to know, is there something that you have that many others don't know about, or that is not very common?
Do you know, I've been thinking about that. It was a great question you asked me. And one of the things that I am is very curious.
Yes.
I'm nosy. That's why I became a lawyer in the first place. When I started law, and I enjoyed reading the law reports because I'm so nosy about what happened and how they got to the answer. So I'm curious. I'm really curious. And so people will come to me with something and they'll tell me something and I'll go, why would they do that? And they'll go, oh yeah, why would they do that? And it's just my natural, that's who I am. And also I think as I'm getting older, what I'm recognizing is I have quite good pattern recognition. So a kind of spidey sense about when things don't feel right, because I recognize the patterns of strange things that kind of don't work. And which is, what I've realized over my career is what I do best, which is look at a problem when it's not working and then try and figure out the pattern and then try and change it so it does work.
I love that. I'm getting elements of like Beautiful Mind, John Nash, or the Queen's Gambit, all these things happening.
I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD, so now that all makes sense. Why I think like
there you go. I'm pretty sure I've got one of those diagnoses coming my way, I'm sure. But I was going to ask, is there an element of, it's not what's said, but more what's not said, and more what's absent in some of the documents? Is that the tell sometimes?
It's interesting what you said before about being fascinated with how people think and what people are going to do, because that's what the criminals are banking on. So, for example, you've got a busy solicitor they feel that they're against a deadline. They feel the weight of the client due diligence that they've got to do. And the client comes in with all the information you need, nicely bundled up. The lawyer goes, brilliant, done. Of course, the crook's gone. I'll just make it dead easy for them and they won't ask me any questions and it's done.
Yes.
And so, they will think, what can I do in this situation to divert the attention of the lawyer away from it? And that's why compliance is so important. We put these processes in place to keep you safe. And so when we skip them, or when we're tempted to skip them because we're against some pressure, or the process itself is really getting in the way of you doing the other things that you're being measured against, time recording, billing, that's when it starts to break down. And the criminals know that. So they'll other things that we'll do. We had a case in the UK quite some years ago now of a solicitor. And I think it's one of the few cases where I would say if you asked him, he'd probably say, I just thought I was doing my day job. But he was taken advantage of by a criminal gang in Manchester, where I'm from, well, Droylsden, actually, where my dad lives. And the crook, basically, was the head of an organised crime group, not a very nice man, murdered a rival drug dealer. And one of his gang, the interesting thing is one of his gang was the one sent out to do the money laundering, not him himself. He wouldn't get anywhere near it. He sent one of his gang out to do the money laundering. And he instructed this lawyer. Now, we don't know what the ins and outs of the case. The lawyer pleaded guilty. He agreed to be struck off. So there's nothing for us to see. But one of the things I thought was interesting about it is that there was a large number of matters and quite a few £1,000 going through the account. I think there was subsequent instructions. And that says to me that the criminal waits till you get comfortable with them and then starts introducing the criminality later on. Because what they could be banking on, and I'm not saying this is the case in Neil's case, Neil Bolton's the unfortunate solicitor, but the criminals will try and get you relying on them for your fee income so you won't ask any questions. I once dealt with a case of somebody who was really in it up to the neck. And it was fascinating. The conduct was over 18 months. And what we think had happened, I was involved way after the case, way after the event. But I was looking at the various files. There was quite a few files, all concerning the same crook. He was not on any of the files. He was putting people forward, and the lawyer was opening the files in these people's name. But this guy was orchestrating the whole thing in the background. And what you could see was the misconduct of the lawyer escalated through the jobs. And you can almost imagine a conversation that says, well, when the lawyer reached his tolerance of, no, I can't do that. You can imagine a conversation with the crook saying, well, you're in it up to your neck already, so you better carry on. And you could just like escalating up. And I just think what's happened to these people. I mean, this is a lawyer who knew his job, because I looked at his other files. He absolutely knew his job. But for some reason, he was influenced by this criminal who then got him to do things that I'm sure, not that I've ever spoken to him, but I'm pretty sure he knew he shouldn't have been doing. And that's the thing for me that sometimes people overlook with AML, is that when people are exploited by the criminals, they're vulnerable, whether that's the people who are buying the drugs off them or the people whose houses they take over and turn them into a drug, a crack den, a distribution house, or it's the children they recruit to go and deliver the drugs, or the lawyers whose careers they ruin because they find a weakness and then exploit that weakness.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'd love to ask, and like a nice segue there is, what's the most unusual compliance red flag you've seen that kind of gets people in the rabbit hole, or people should be aware of? Would you say there, Amy?
Well, one of the most interesting ones for me was when I had a passport certified by a vet. Okay, so one of the things we might ask for in property world, you'll be familiar with, verification of identity. And
Yes.
and you'd send somebody off. You're not going to meet them, so you want someone to eyeball them and look at the document.
Of course,
genuine.
naturally.
Yeah. So I got one in from a vet. Now, at the same time, I got a 0 score on the electronic check. So the electronic check, if it comes back 0, it's either someone's typed something in wrong or something doesn't quite work, because something's not quite right. And so that then had taken me to actually look at the document. I thought, what does a vet know about verifying ID? I thought, this is a bit strange. And then I looked at the picture, and there was a shadow underneath the image. And then the person's name was Miss, etc. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this on your passport, there's an M or an F to denote gender. And this was Miss Alexandra, and there was an M for the gender bit on the passport. And so, I mean, it was nailed on dodgy. It was an obvious one, but
certifiable.
How many people would have thought, why would a vet do this? Why is there an M and not an F?
Going back to your point before, Amy, it's you asking, why would he do that? And it's like, yeah, why would he do that? And you just have to ask that question. And I'd love to ask, because you probably need your downtime with all these things that you're dealing with. And it's pretty high pressure, high stakes, and probably wears you down a little bit in some ways. How do you unwind after one of these particularly tough days, or, having to spot the nefarious things that human beings can do?
It's a really interesting question, because I mean that's presupposing I do. So I obviously run businesses on both sides of the world. So that means that I'm actually quite long days normally.
Yes.
When I'm at home, my pastime of choice is to spend time with my kids or my husband.
Lovely.
We have date nights, and we move to a nice village where you can go for a nice walk and get a drink and be a local and that kind of thing. When I'm in Melbourne, because I'm on my own, when I'm in Melbourne, I've got a jigsaw. I love a jigsaw.
Love a good jigsaw.
Some sort of crime TV on Netflix. At the moment, I'm watching Startup, which is a few years old, but it's about money laundering. And so I like a good crime drama, and I like a jigsaw. Is my I'm such a geek.
Why does it not surprise me that your favorite pastime is also the name of the main criminal in the Saw franchise? There's some subconscious element there operating, and I'm sure there, Amy. But on that same vein, is there any passion projects you can tell us you're working on professionally, personally, that you're okay sharing with us?
Yeah, I am actually. I'm always working on something. I am putting the finishing touches to a book I've been threatening to publish for quite a while, called Compliance That Works. And Compliance That Works is essentially having spent 27 years in the law, actually, observing compliance programs not working. But no one wants to write a book called Compliance Doesn't Work, do they? So it's called Compliance That Does Work.
Someone should.
Well, mine's going to be Compliance That Works, and I'm just putting the finishing touches to that. Obviously, every day I learn something else to put in it, and so it's quite difficult to just go, right, I'm done. I'm definitely done learning, because I'm never done learning.
No, never. But the school of life has a lot to teach you, Amy. Still.
100%, and people are curious, and I love working out and seeing things. This experience in Australia has added such a lot, because whilst I was around 21 years ago and AML was quite new, I never had this. Nobody knows about it at all. And I'm trying to help them for the first time see it and understand it. So that's been absolutely fascinating, because in the UK, my experience of dealing with people, they've been trained every year, and usually trained till they want to cry. and by the time I meet them, and then hopefully they feel a bit refreshed and that they understand it a bit more when I meet them. But in Australia, everyone's brand new to it, and it's been really fascinating to see people, as I said, the crushing reality has dawned on them that this is not just a one day in July thing. This is for the rest of my career. These are things I'm going to have to think about, and to help people and learn from the mistakes that I've seen people make over the 21 years, and go, don't do that. Just, trust me on it. I'll explain why I don't do it, but trust me on it. Because if you do that,
don't do it.
And so, it's been fascinating to go from an environment where most people know the basics and they're looking for the kind of ninja level stuff. How do I justify that? How do I fix this? What should I do there? To going right back to this is why we do it. This is how we do it. And these are problems you don't know you're going to get yet, but when they do come, this is what you do about them. So yeah, it's been fun to do that. And then obviously I'm getting on a bit, if I'm honest. And so I'm like, what?
You're still in your early 30s. You're
I wish I was. I definitely said at some point in my career I'd be retired by now. But I think I am thinking, what is the future for me? What can what legacy can I leave? Because people say you'll never stop working, Amy, because I am a bit of a workaholic. But actually, I can definitely stop working and do jigsaws. I'd be very happy to do that. But I want to leave something meaningful. And that was really why I started Teal. Because, Teal isn't just about me. AMLS isn't just about, it's not just my consultancy business. It's bigger than me. And, I'm now turning my mind to what does the future look like for me? Because for me, it was building a business, building a process, because that's my thing. Been lucky enough to do that now in another country and do startup life all over again. Obviously, much quicker than I did it this time with Teal. We've achieved in AMLS what took us 3 or 4 years to achieve in Teal. And so I've done those 2 things now. So I'm thinking, what's next? So we'll see.
Absolutely. That's okay. But I'd love to ask you, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and, there may have been a teacher or 2 or a mentor who's been important in your life. Is there anyone that you can note that's been instrumental in your journey?
So, again, this is a really great question. And I had a chat.
Only come out with the great ones, Amy. Come on.
It was great. I had a chat with my ChatGPT. I said, I'm going on this podcast. He's asking me this really hard question. I don't know the answer. And so I said, what do you think the answer to this is? And I call him a he. He needs very specific instructions, does my ChatGPT. So I said to him, who do you think? What do you think? Because, we've been in a relationship for quite a while, me and ChatGPT. And he said to me, well, Amy, you've never actually mentioned anybody. I've never said to him, I learned this from this person.
Interesting.
And so I didn't have an answer. And then I thought about it and I thought, here's what I did learn. I learned a lot of things from a lot of people, lots of little things. I had a string of really bad bosses. I have had an amazing one.
There's at least one good one in there. Let's be honest.
Eddie was, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you today if it wasn't for Eddie. Eddie said, you're going to
shout out to Eddie.
And when you start a business, Amy, you're going to have to call it Teal because you're always wearing teal. So at least you'll be on brand all the time. And that's where the name came from.
Love that.
But one thing that they all taught me was in starting my own business, I am absolutely fanatical about doing the exact opposite of some of the things that were done to me in my career and my life.
Wow.
And that has been such a privilege to be able to try and craft a business where you say, I'm actually not doing that daft rule about ringing if you're sick, because I believe you. If you say you're poorly, I'm going to believe you. I don't need you to ring me.
You're not going to go
and sound poorly.
I can't come in today.
And I think it's about my curiosity. In every rule we've ever brought in Team Teal, I have tried to, if possible, say, why are we doing that? Why would we do that? And then usually I do the opposite. I don't always get it right. I often compare running a business to being a first-time parent, because I have learned such a lot in the last 10 years of being a business owner. But for me, I learned a lot from people who didn't treat me and others around them very well. And I try and do the exact opposite.
I love that. And I think there's a lot of lessons people can pick up from your journey. And looking into the future, what would you like to see in the legal realm and how firms approach compliance, especially as we go in further into the age of AI in the next 10 years?
I'm excited about AI. My kids are not. if they're listening to this, they'll be absolutely furious. They hate my relationship with ChatGPT. Mummy, do you know how much water is being used? I'm like, I know, babe, but it thinks as quick as I do, so I quite like it. and
Exactly.
So I get my instant feedback from it, and I get through so much more. But I think that one of the things that you can get from technology is it's and this takes some doing, and you have to be careful, and it's got a long way to go. Right? But some of the vulnerabilities that we have as humans that people can exploit won't be exploited by. They can't do the same to the tech, because the tech is into pattern recognition, not looking for the easiest path or looking for keeping somebody happy. It's looking for a pattern. And I think in AML in particular, I'm excited for how we can use that to anticipate problems. I mean, one of the things I don't talk about very much is I've spent the last 5 years building software, all about gathering data so we can analyze it. Because I think, the answer to most of our compliance problems could be predicted. A bit Minority Report, that where you predict.
I love that with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Pre-med.
That is my dream.
Pre-crime.
Can we take compliance data and work out where it's going to go wrong? Because here's the thing. One of the worst days for me of my life as a solicitor was the first time I had a professional negligence claim. The first time I messed something up. I think that's true for lots of solicitors. Of course. It's all great until that day comes and you have to report to your insurers you've done something wrong, and you have to invite your client to sue you, And if we become lawyers to solve people's problems, that is the exact opposite of it. And actually, that's what compliance is about. Compliance is about trying to avoid that day happening to you. So for me, when I look at compliance and I look at lawyers being, including myself, and the impact of me of that kind of thing happening, feeling like the worst person in the world, and most of them are preventable if only we knew where to look. So I'm super excited about using software to instead of checking 2-3 files a month supervision, why can't we check them all with the tech? Why can't we look out for the flags?
Why not?
Why can't we supervise every letter and every email that goes out using software? And that will reduce the lawyers having those awful days, and then the clients obviously feeling let down by the lawyers. For me, it's all about safety. Safety for the clients, safety for the lawyers, safety ultimately for the profession.
No, and I put that as one of the quotes for the episode. So I'm glad you brought that up. Safety for everyone is part of it. And really appreciate you sharing one of the more vulnerable moments of your career, because, we all have those matters and files where, you think you're unstoppable and then poof, and it comes, but you probably learned so much more from that than anything else, And
100%. My boss said to me, when it happened to me, I was like, just wanted to cry. And she said, oh, don't worry, I've got 2 over there. It's like a club nobody wants to be in, once it happens to you. And I'm all about, like, let's just be open and upfront about this. Let's be curious about why that thing happened, what process or system failed to allow that thing to go wrong. And let's fix that. A friend of mine, Ray Blake, who's a big name. He's a podcaster.
Shout out to Ray.
In AML, he does the dark money files. Very good. If you've not listened to it, he's coined this phrase. I said, I'm in curiosity, not blame, and he said, you mean curious, not furious, Amy. So I give him full credit for that. But that's what I am.
The fast
curious,
and the
not
curious.
furious.
No doubt. I love that. Well, shout out to Ray. I think that's fantastic. Black Money Podcast. And this is a really great segue before we get into the end of the stream and the bonus questions. Lessons for young lawyers and professionals and compliance officers starting their career. What would you like to say to them?
Ask for help. Ask for help.
I love that.
Feeling when you get on that ladder, especially law, because it's so competitive, it is frightening to ask for any help. Please ask for help. You will be surprised how much we senior lawyers are grateful that you didn't just sit there struggling.
Suffering in silence.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could do that, hopefully we would help the mental health issues that we have in the profession. If we could make it a safe place. And we've got to do that. The senior lawyers have got to take responsibilities for making it a safe place to put your hand up and say, I'm stuck. Definitely didn't feel like that when I was a junior lawyer. But I'm hoping that we live in hope that we can sort that out.
I love that. I love that. Well, it harkens back to a band that I'm sure you love from where you're from, the Beatles. Help, I need somebody. Help, not just anybody. So, yeah, don't suffer in silence as a young professional. Make sure you ask for help, because if you are, it's like kindergarten. You put your hand up, there's probably 3 or 4 other people that had the same question, but no one wanted to be the first one to out themselves.
100%.
No, I love that. And if we look at the balance of your life and what's yet to come, at the end of it all, how would you like to be remembered one day there, Amy?
I left it better than I found it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You must have got my life philosophy, because it's very similar. I think that's amazing. It's amazing. And I feel that you're already doing that. And I'm sure the world can be expecting, with the second book and other things you're working on, a lot more to come, no doubt.
Hope so.
And where can people find you, Amy? Where are you hanging out the most?
Oh, LinkedIn, all the time. If you want me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm never off it. I remain grateful to LinkedIn as a platform, because without that, nobody would know who I was, really. And it's put me in touch with so many people. It's helped me meet people. It's helped me develop my understanding of the problems that people have. And it's such a supportive place, especially the AML world. AML bit of LinkedIn is so supportive. So yeah, hope you'll find me on there at any time of the day or night, because obviously I work all of the time.
Absolutely. Well, be sure to connect with Amy Bell on LinkedIn. Any questions, queries, concerns, make sure you subscribe to any of her stuff. Pick up a copy of her book. It's the 4th edition out, right? Am I right, Amy?
So it is, yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on the show. And I hope you enjoy the podcast wherever you get it, because it's going to be very pertinent with all these changes already in place and to come. Thanks so much, Amy. Really appreciate it. We'll bring you back for some bonus questions. Pleasure. And if you're a legend of law or know someone who is and you'd like to be on the show, we come out every Wednesday, talking to a legend like Amy on LawLive, an accounting or finance professional in Ledger Legends, or just a wonderful human being making a difference in business on my Live with Cullen Haynes show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. All the best. Get home safely. Take care and make it count. Bringing you back, Amy, if you could explain the role that you do in AML to my young son who's 3 years old, Benji, how would you go about making it as simple as possible?
So, when you play a game and there's loads of rules you have to follow, and people get upset with you when you don't, I try and make people stick to the rules.
I love that. Yes. There we go. I'm sure you're not the most popular person, but you get people to stick to those rules.
I'm there to stop you falling out with your friends. That's what I'm there, keeping you safe.
How would your pet describe you?
So I only recently got cats again after many, many years. So we've got 3.
Oh, wonderful. Love that.
I think all of them would say, "Where have you been, mummy?" Because I disappear for loads of time.
Oh my goodness.
And then they're like, not sure. But they would probably say she's always very busy, but she always makes time for a cuddle, I think.
Oh, it's amazing. Sure. You have how many cats do you have in total at the moment?
3.
3.
Alistair, sausage, and mash.
I love that. If you're listening or watching, this one's for you 3. That's amazing. And the last question there, Amy, if you could give yourself advice at any age, go back in time and visit a young Amy Bell. When would you go back, and what would you say to yourself?
Having recently, as I mentioned to you, had an ADHD diagnosis, I now realize how difficult life was. I have 2 girls with autism as well. And I was so scared to ask for help because I felt the world didn't make any sense to me. The social rules didn't make any sense. I made mistakes. I was not just physically clumsy, but also clumsy because I didn't realize the rules. And that young Amy really suffered as a result of that. Now I see my girls in a completely different environment, time, where they can say, I have autism, so I need to explain to you I've got autism, which means that I need these things. And so I can't go back in time to the 70s and the 80s and say, when you're 50, you'll work out you've got autism and it'll all be fine, ADHD, and it'll all be fine after that. But what I think I would say is just keep being yourself. As hard as it is, one thing I have always been is myself, because I can't be anybody else. I can't. One of the things with being neurodiverse is you can mask, but it costs you such a lot to do. So I'm that friend that tells you the truth, even if you don't want it. I can't help myself. It comes out my mouth. And so I would kind of say to that younger Amy, as I say to my own girls, don't make excuses for who you are. Don't try and be somebody else. Be yourself, because you're okay. You're good. My dad did say that to me when I was 13. I was sat in the car and I was, had a particular hard time with some people. And I was like, what's wrong with me, Dad? Why can't I do this? And he says, listen, you're okay. He didn't say you were brilliant or you're amazing. He just said you're okay. And his voice pops into my head when I'm feeling like scared, and I still feel scared and frightened. I mean, you can't run businesses on both sides of the world without feeling a bit frightened sometimes. And I hear him saying, you're okay. And so that's, that was such a key message to me as a kid. And that's what I say to my own girls. You're okay.
I love that. I wish, I think more people, you ask ChatGPT questions, more people should have you as their friend to be able to ask these questions and life lessons, Amy. We should put you into ChatGPT and said, if Amy was here, what would she say?
I'm a wise old bird these days, I think, which is what, as I say, my passion project is how do I help people to the max with that is something I'm pondering.
No, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the gems you've shared. I think now when people re-listen, rewatch, I think it's going to be timeless no matter when they tune in. And thank you so much for being who you are and leaving the world better than you found it there, Amy. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Honestly, I really enjoyed it.
An absolute pleasure. Get home safely, everyone, and have a wonderful Wednesday.
See you.
Hey there, Cullen Haynes here, Australia's leading broker for lawyers on LinkedIn, and here's why I want to talk to you today about my book, my new book, The Laws of LinkedIn, 23 ways to find your tribe, build your following, and make 7 figures on LinkedIn. When I started this journey 7 years ago, when we built, myself and Andrew, my business partner, we built legal home loans from the ground up, the pain point for us was we were at a standing start. No one knew who we were. We had no money, we had no contacts, and basically we had to find a way to make our voice heard, talk to our tribe, the legal community, and build trust. And the only thing we had at our disposal was LinkedIn, which was and still is free. There's over 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and I wish when I started, I had this book with me to guide me, because I basically distilled my 23 top leading hacks that we use to build our business to a 7+ figure, and I really want to get it out there and share it with you. So if you're back